I'm here with Vic of Pierce DeVille to talk about Jaws of Life out February 10th on Fearless Records. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you on the channel. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you. Good to be here. Good to meet you.
So let me start off by asking you this. I love that the title of the record is so well represented on the cover of the album, but then how do you translate that title, that cover, into the overall content that the album will offer to the listener?
Oh, yeah. It's a great question. I think, this album is a lot about going through a dark time and then finding your way into the light again. And you're not just finding your way, but clawing your way, scratching your way, digging your way out. And, the Jaws of Life is a machine that's used to save lives. And, it's kind of about, prying your way into, feeling better again and getting out of a bad time. And I also think about the Jaws of Life as like in a term of like Jaws. Like sometimes it feels like life is trying to sink its teeth into you or has its grip on you, and you're trying to break free of that grip. And so it has a lot of different meanings for me.
When it comes to the creative process, are you somebody who's set in your ways in terms of how you approach each and every single record, or does every album give you enough room to kind of redefine yourself as far as that creative touch is concerned?
I think that every album is going to be a different process, no matter if you like it or not. Like that, you can't stop it. It's always going to like teach you something. It's always going to teach you a lesson, good or bad. Both, always, actually. You're always going to learn something about yourself. And I think I've found, especially with this record, if you lean into that more, then you find it way more enjoyable, and you are open to a new experience and it being completely different, and embrace that and actually try and move towards that is actually better, because it's way more fun. It's way more entertaining. It's exciting. It's fresh feeling.
How many people do you allow into that process, into that creative process of putting a record together?
Only a few. Like really, it's typically just me solo on like road trips and stuff like that. And I spent some of the time making this record up in Seattle in this house. It's like 100-year-old cool house that was owned by Mike from A&P-Reacts, a legendary punk rock band, and he has this house that's just made for music. You just do whatever you want in there, make a ton of noise. And so I lived there for a minute. I lived in a cabin for a while working on these songs. But then every once in a while, I love to bring in some of my best friends who are writers, or take a little risk here and there with a up and coming producer writer. And like Past the Nirvana we wrote with these guys that I'd never met before, that were just really little mad scientists and really hungry to make music, and it was super fun. But yeah, typically it's not a lot of people.
What about you? Are you still hungry?
Am I still hungry? Oh yeah, always. I mean, we're always looking for something else that we could do that we've never done before.
You're not afraid of opening new doors when it comes to Pierce DeVille. Does that give you more power to just not only be who you are, but to be the full artist that you can be?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the keys, is to not, paint yourself into a corner artistically. Is always leave a path open, leave a door open. I think I'm really happy that and thankful that even in our first album, we had a piano song, or we had something divergent from the scene at the time, and so it kind of, in some ways, it made us feel like an outcast band a little bit, because we weren't heavy enough, we weren't pop enough, we weren't this. But I always liked that because it made us stand out, and I was proud of that.
At the end of the day, it's more about the quality of the music and not necessarily the umbrella in which you're going to fall under. I'm assuming that's going to be your philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, quality of the music, and also just like how much you care, how much you care about your music, and how much you want to, how much of yourself you're willing to put on the line and put into these records.
When you take a step back now, not that the album is finished and maybe a little bit easier to see the forest from the trees. So when you look at the process of putting this record together, what were some of the biggest challenges, and where do you see your own personal biggest growth in this album?
My biggest what? What was the last word?
Growth.
Goals?
Growth.
Growth. Sorry. Yeah. I guess the biggest challenges were, I think, I mean, the challenges are always to try and, lyrics are always hard for me. That's a hard thing for me to finish. And that's like, that's usually why the album gets pushed back and gets pushed back because Vic's not done with the lyrics. I'm always trying to finish the lyrics, and that's what takes me the longest. And that's what puts me through the most. And I just have to keep at it and keep looking for it and searching and trying to find the words. And so that's always the biggest challenge for me. And then the growth, there was a lot of growth in this record. I think the biggest part was that we grew as a band, as a family, as like a brotherhood between the three of us, because I think this record really brought us closer. We lived in New Orleans creating the record in a house. So we lived in this house together, and we just had a lot of strengthening of our bond, connections, conversations, and it really brought us tighter than we ever have been, and kind of focused us on what we want to do with the band in the future. And I think that was really one of the main things that we got out of this record personally.
When it comes down to creating the track listing on the album, are you someone who envisions what the full album is going to be, and therefore the track listing plays an important role into that, or you're more in touch with the modern way of kids consuming music these days on Spotify and iTunes and just buying singles here and there? What's your philosophy?
I think we always look at a album like almost like a live show. We want to think about what kind of emotional roller coaster are we going to put this person on as they listen, and how do we want them to feel right off the bat, and how do we want to end the record? How do we want them to feel when they finish it? And it's really about, it's like staging like an emotion. It's almost like editing a movie or something like that. How do you want these to guide the emotions? And so it is a difficult process, and it always happens just at the very end for me. It's like a few days before we turn in the album, we're still like playing with the order, and like we have like a eureka moment, and it's like, oh, this song should be first. That's great. Like, why didn't I think of that? And I'm in my car playing. I've got my laptop in my car, and I'm switching songs around, and I'm listening to the album and trying to feel it. So it's a funny process, but and sometimes you don't even know if it's right in the end. You're like, I think that's probably pretty good.
Yeah, at some point in time, you gotta hand it in and just hope it works for the best.
Yeah, exactly.
I absolutely love the guitar sound on this album, and to me, it felt diverse, it felt balanced, it felt subtle, not so subtle. I mean, it's really hard to define how the guitars come across in the duration of the record. How would you define the guitar sound on this record?
One of my friends who doesn't know anything about music texted me the other day about one of our singles that we just put out, and she's like, it's warm and fuzzy. And I was like, I love that description of guitar, like warm and fuzzy. Like, who doesn't want a warm and fuzzy guitar? That's perfect. I like that. And yeah, so a lot of warm and fuzzy guitars, kind of really pulling inspiration from a lot of 90s bands, and a lot of those tones where they would go from really glassy cleans to really dirty, warm, fuzzy guitars. And I think that's a really satisfying mixture, and we wanted to try something like that, as opposed to the high gain, more metal feels that we've used in the last two records. And we've dabbled with fuzzy guitars and stuff like that over the years, but I think this is the most we've ever kind of went for it on a record.
At least from a consistent standpoint in terms of beginning to end. I definitely see that. And you mentioned the fact of never closing doors, leaving doors open as far as where the band can go sound-wise. Is there something that you can change when it comes to the sound of Pierce the Veil? Because changing that would be changing who the band is?
I think that the lyrics and the vocals are the thing that will always thread everything together. You know, as long as I'm singing on it, it's a Pierce the Veil song, you know? So I think that can always be a thread that makes our songs feel like our band. But mainly the lyrics, like I always have a similar process of the lyrics of just, you know, really focusing on every line and every single moment having I don't know, the feeling that I wanted to have, and finding that and being as creative as possible, painting as much of a picture so that things feel tangible almost, you know, you can smell them or see them and picture them in your mind. And so that's always my goal, and I try to stay consistent with that.
Well, you mentioned your vocals as being a key factor, and how much work do you put in your vocals? Do you take classes? Do you do any training? Is there some part of your range that you hope to evolve a little bit more, or are you comfortable where you are?
I'm definitely always trying to evolve. I've taken vocal lessons pretty much throughout my whole career, and I still want to take some, especially to learn how to stay healthy on tour, you know, because that's, I think, one of my biggest challenges as I get older is these songs are so like at the 100% capability of my vocals, like the way that I recorded them is like, there's no chill on a lot of these songs. It's like I'm going like at everything that I can physically do. So to do that every night is difficult. So I have to like really focus on my vocal care and technique, and I think I still have a lot to learn about how to really take care of the voice and keep it for an entire tour, you know, so that I'm not injuring myself or I don't know, just trying to give the best show every night. And it's always a battle.
Is there a song on this record that was a little bit more demanding for you vocally that stands out in your mind?
Yeah, there's definitely I mean, honestly, singing Emergency Contact, the second single that we put out, is a mouthful. It's like I thought it was going to be an easy song to sing live, and then I realized, I'm telling the guys, I'm like, guys, I don't stop singing on this song. There's no musical break where I'm not singing. I didn't realize that. So like it's like a marathon, like just keep taking breaths and singing for, you know, 3 or 4 minutes. And I found that one has actually been pretty difficult, but I'm getting there. It's all about muscle memory, really. You got to do it 1,000 times and then it'll be easier every time.
Yeah, next album cycle, when we chat about it, like it's going to be nothing for you.
Yeah. By the time it's too late, I'll have mastered it.
I have to talk to you about Fractures. That song with Chloe, it's whose idea was it to have like that kind of duet, and then why Chloe?
I wanted to have a female vocalist on that song just to, because I knew the song already had a story. It was like, I'm telling a story really much, like really clearly in this song. And so I thought that it would elevate it even to a next level if there was actually the other person in that song. So like, you know, build 2 characters in it. And also really just wanted to work with her because I think she's a great artist, and I think that her voice is like, I don't know, man. It's like melting. It's beautiful. It's like I love listening to it. It's so satisfying, and so I think she elevated that song quite a bit.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, without her, it's not the same track. Like you need to have that yin and yang that really brings to life the lyrical content. And you talked about the lyrics being difficult. When I listen to the album and I look at the lyrics, they feel very easy. Like it was a very organic process. So how do you transform something that's such a difficult process for you into something that sounds so straightforward, like really carrying your heart on your sleeve, and you're wearing a tank top.
Yeah. It's to me, lyrics are all about balance. You know, it's like in music in general, I'm constantly balancing vibes. And so like, if I say this thing, I allow myself to say this thing, and I can like, I can always like teeter between energies, and it's really an art form in itself of like, you know, I'm not going to go too sad, and I'm going to bring it right back with this other line, and it's going to make you feel this way. So like, I'm going to bring you to the edge of sadness, and then I'm going to say this other thing that's going to be very loving, and so that's going to like pull you right back in. So it's like, it's this like flow of emotions and like balance. So that's I think what I'm always searching for is like, oh, okay, it finally feels right. It doesn't feel too much like that, because I was heading too far in that direction, and now I got to pull it back and find the right way, you know. So that's what really takes me the longest, to figure that whole perfect like painting out, you know.
One last question for you. When you started Pierce the Veil, when that journey got underway, did you ever imagine, or is where you are today your goal all along for the journey that you took on?
I would never imagine that things could have got to this scale with our band. Like, I think that we always were passionate about music, and we wanted to grow this and just have fans everywhere in the world. That was like our goals. We just want to have fans. Like I want to have fans in London, you know, like that was like a big goal in the beginning. And but I don't think any of us really ever knew that it could go to a scale that we're on now. And I talked, me and my best friend Curtis Peoples, who's a big writer that I write with a lot on these songs, and him and I just are always talking about how crazy it is. We're just like, man, I can't believe it. I can't believe we're here, and that we get to do this, and that you know, and that we have the ability to do more, you know, now than ever. You know, we've got a great team. We've got all this knowledge and people to help us achieve any creative ideas we want. So that it's a really exciting place to be in our career.
Did you get a chance? I'm adding a part B to that question. Did you get a chance to ever say to somebody, "I told you so"?
I think in ways, not. I don't think I ever said it like that, but you know, there's everything. I think everybody can have a feeling of like gratification or vengeance. You know, like I think one of my favorite lines on our record is off of Emergency Contact. I start the song saying, "There's no greater vengeance than learning to enjoy again." And so I think just being happy can be revenge on someone who's trying to bring you down, you know, and just showing that you are actually happy is actually the biggest revenge ever. So I think that is a good way to describe this record too.
Yeah, I think it's a good positive way of having that revenge. You know what I mean? Like, not in a destructive way, but rather in a positive way, because it lifts you up.
Yeah, look at me. Look at me. You didn't bring me down. You didn't bury me. Look at me. I'm having a great life right now. It feels great, you know?
Well, Vic, thank you very much for your time today. Pierce the Veil is releasing Jaws of Life February 10th on Fearless Records. Go check it out on all the platforms, streaming all over the place. Thank you once again for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. It's good to talk to you.
Take care, man.
Later.